My friends, welcome to the Sheep Get Sheared Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Creed, and my friends, today, yesterday we talked a little bit about politics, talked about Israel and Ukraine. You will not hear Israel or Ukraine outside of what you just heard on the show today. I'm over it. I can't open my news app. I can't go on social media without seeing it being shoved down my throat every 2 minutes. I'm not doing it. So instead of focusing on that today, which I refuse to do, we're instead going to talk about the struggles of man yet again. The three pinnacles of this show is people, politics, and popular culture. The three main P's on the show. I think we need to refer back to the people again. We talked a little bit about popular culture and about politics. Let's get back to the everyday struggles of the people. I think it's incredibly important. When it comes to men, I had a very interesting conversation with my girlfriend. Apparently, my girlfriend actually likes listening to the show when she's cleaning our house, which I find that very ironic. Am I weird in that? Am I weird to think that that's weird that my girlfriend likes to listen to me talk to the boys while we're talking about very complex topics? Is that weird? Any other women who listen to the show, do you listen to me talk while you're cleaning your house? Let me know. Let me know in the comments on YouTube or go on X at Sheep Get Sheared and follow me, follow the show. But let me know. I could be more normal than I originally thought. But going back to, I was talking to my girlfriend about this earlier today, actually. And we were talking about the struggles that men have and women have in life in general. And I thought it was incredibly interesting to talk about how it's easy, especially on the more red pill content. It's easy to get sucked into women have it real easy. And it's really easy to get sucked into, if you're a woman and you're a feminist, then men have it. Oh, the world was made for men. Men have it so easy. And I stopped and I said, wait a minute. Hold up a second, Austin. Hold up a second. Everybody has their own unique struggles. I don't care if you're a man, woman, dog. Everybody has their problems. I don't care if you identify as a cat and you live your life with a litter box. Everybody has their own struggles. And in a weird way, we try to make our lives better by pointing out how we don't have a certain struggle that other people have. I find it really odd, frankly. But when it comes back to the struggles of men, I think one of the biggest struggles that I think was not reiterated to me enough when I was younger. I'm in my mid-20s now, but when I was younger, I didn't realize how unbelievably difficult it is to try to develop a life outside of the Matrix. I think Andrew Tate was really the one who popularized, and I'm sure there were people before him. I don't doubt that. But to my knowledge, he was the one that really popularized this notion of the Matrix applying outside of the movie The Matrix itself back in the late 90s. Or that was the early 2000s. Oh, God, I don't remember. But anyways, the notion of the Matrix, that we live in this programmed society, I didn't really get turned on to it until I started going more entrepreneurial with my endeavors to make money. When I started to go outside the normal trading time for money aspect of making a living, I realized how true it actually was. And so I don't care if you're a man or a woman listening to the show, I really think it's important for us to highlight the struggles of entrepreneurs, the struggle of not having a 9-to-5. Now, if you have a 9-to-5 job, you could still have a side hustle. And I know people who have done that. They start their own business on the side with their wife or by themselves, and they start to build something using the Matrix money to mold that money into a new venture to where they can now become the boss. Instead of having to pay homage to their boss for the rest of their life, they're using that as a means to an end to build something for themselves and their children in the future. I actually respect that quite a lot. But I think one of the main struggles, and I can't talk from the female perspective, I won't do it. I'm not gonna feign sympathy for women. I'm not gonna feign sympathy for men. I'm only gonna speak on notions I know and lives I have lived. That's all I can do. I will not pretend to know what it's like to be a woman. I'm not. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about the struggles of men, because I am a man, in case you can't tell by the deep notion of my voice. I know there are some transgender people who have deep voices. I am not one of them. I think it's important for us to realize that as men, we have to decide who we want to be. You as women, you have to decide who you want to be, but as men, we have to decide who we want to be. We have to decide, what do we live our life for? What gets you out of bed in the morning, as cliche as that was? I remember when I joined the military. When I joined the military, I was in the Air Force for about 2 years. When I joined the military and I went through every day of basic training, every night when I looked up, there was a small little, barred window in my building, and I look out of on my cot, with 20 other dudes, going down both hallways with our lockers. Every night when I'd hit the pillow, I'd look up at the ceiling and I would think to myself, why am I here? Why did I choose to do this? I don't like it. I don't feel good. Why did I choose to do this? Why did I not just go work at Burger King? Why didn't I just, I don't know, go find a regular job? Why did I choose to do this? Because prior to that, I worked at Chick-fil-A. My life wasn't so bad. But I decided to take a risk. A lot of men, they take the wrong risks. They take the risk of getting into a relationship too early on. They take the risk of maybe trying to make fast money. Instead of taking a risk that's going to serve a larger purpose, they take a very short-sighted risk, which leads them to taking either short-term rewards and getting screwed over in the future, or they try to get out and they have this period of trying to rebuild what was burned in this attempt to make short, fast money. And so, my friend, I return back to the question of, who do you want to become? And make no mistake about it, it will change over time. It's changed for me over time. I originally wanted to do talk radio. Talk radio is something that I grew up on to an extent, and I respect people who do talk radio. Even if I disagree with their politics, I like the medium of talk radio to me more than watching things on YouTube. I'm not as much a visual guy when it comes to that kind of learning. I prefer to listen when I'm learning, in the same way that's why I used to do more face content, and I will, because that's how you win in the world of content today. It's very hard to make any kind of living doing what I'm doing podcasting wise, just doing an audio show. Those days are long gone with all the theatrics and how completely saturated the podcasting universe has become. But nonetheless, it's incredibly important for you to have a beacon. You don't want to be a ship just sailing around having no port of destination. You have to realize, what do you want to be at this current moment? You could want to be an astronaut, a doctor, I don't know, a stockbroker. It could be anything under the sun. But you need to have a goal. You need to have a reason to look better, or a reason to try in life. Because I think with civilization the way it is today, and the longer lives we're living thanks to the miracles of modern science, a lot of people have the convenience, and yes, I do mean convenience, of sitting there and saying, I don't know what I want to do, and I kind of just will coast. There used to be a time where you couldn't just coast. You either had to get in gear or get run over. And nowadays, that's not as obvious as it once was. And I think it's incredibly important that if you want to win, I think everybody wants to be rich. I've never met someone who wants to be poor. People who are poor want to be rich. People who are rich want to get richer. But people don't know what they're willing to give to get the life they want. And getting rich doesn't mean you're sitting on a hoard of money or diving into a pot of gold like Scrooge McDuck. It means that you have options in your life. Contrary to popular belief and what you'll hear on a lot of people's shows or in the media itself, being poor is not a virtue. I know it might be put that way in a lot of religions and a lot of political spectrums, but it's not true. In fact, I've met a lot more people who are poor, who are goddess, bums of the lowest order, trying to steal from you every chance they got, trying to lift your wallet out of your back pocket every time you turn your back. And I know people who are rich who have helped build thousands of jobs, helped people pull themselves out of the gutter, and provided people with opportunity. Now, you're going to find gonifs who are rich, and you're going to find gangsters who are poor. You're going to find everything, because life is a spectrum. Yes, there's black and white. I believe there are absolutes when it comes to good and evil. Some things can never be good, and some things can only be bad. In the same notion, that's not the majority. The majority is somewhere in between the two I just described. Some things will always be evil and some things will always be good. And you need to find in between where that gray area is that you live in, and what you need to define your own moral code. The reason I say that is because a part of my philosophy in Biblical Bachelor is you have to define who you are to then define who you want to become. You can't become something else if you don't know what you currently are, because you don't know what changes you'll have to make. In the same way that a doctor can't diagnose you unless they know what the problem is and then therefore know how to treat the problem, they need to know you have a problem. You can't just say, I want to be an astronaut, but you don't know what you're doing right now. You don't know where you're going with your life. You don't know anything other than what you want. It's a good starting point, but you need to know. You need to have a general idea of who you currently are to then know what you need to change or give up to get where you want to go. Otherwise, you're going to try to refix things that don't need to be fixed, or you're going to avoid things that maybe you should have paid better attention to. Hold on, let me get a drink real quick. Also need to take your nutrition seriously. I'm sitting here getting a smoothie. It's actually very important. Your nutrition is incredibly important. I don't understand how people can eat a lot of the crap they eat today. You ever go, whether it's you're walking or you're driving, you ever go down the street and you see people who are just, they're fat as horses. They're out here looking like they should have their own gravitational pull. And you ask yourself, you scratch your head, how do they get like that? How do they allow themselves to be complete pigs like this? Forget the so-called beauty standards. Focus more on how can you not like yourself to the extent that you're slowly killing yourself with food? Because what you're doing. I don't care what you say. I care about what I'm seeing with my own eyes. My eyes aren't lying to me, just as your ears aren't lying to you when you hear me say it. I don't understand people who don't take their health seriously. No, I'm not saying a dude who looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger who goes to your gym is healthy. For all I know, he's taking hella gear, he's taking test and tren, and he's blowing out his liver and his kidneys, and he's killing himself. That's not healthy. You need to find, again, I'm going to refer back to what I just said. You have to define what you want and where you are to get to where you want to go. That's how change is cultivated. Change happens whether you like it or not. Change is going to find you. Your life will not stay the same. In fact, you shouldn't want your life to stay the same. Yes, I said it. You shouldn't want your life to stay where it is right now, because then you're not going to grow as a person. I never understood these guys who like wear their baseball caps backwards and they're like 37, 38. And they try to dress like they're younger than me and I'm 25. Trying to act like they should be back in college. I don't get it. It's sick. It's sick. They're walking around in a midlife crisis, but instead of accepting who they are and trying to maybe they need HRT. Maybe they need to get themselves back in the gym. Maybe they need to go see a doctor and make sure, whatever it is, why are they focused more on the circumstantial? They're not focused on the long term, which is why I think it's important you take care of yourself. Don't cheap out on yourself. You should always want to invest in yourself. That's my opinion. I don't understand people who will cheap out on themselves but buy nice things for other people. I don't get that. Can someone explain that to me? Why would you cheap out on yourself, buy nice things for other people? It's one thing to do, treat yourself well and treat others well. But why in the world would you treat yourself like crap all the while you're doing all these nice things for people? Let's say I know people, and you know who you are if you know me in real life. I know people who will buy a nice steak dinner for their wife or their girlfriend or a girl they want to get with. They won't take themselves to that steakhouse. They won't take themselves out to do something nice, but they'll do it for a woman. They'll do it for their parents. They'll do it for somebody else. They won't do it for themselves, though. And I think it's incredibly sad when I see it. And so when we talk about people, especially men, because I'm a man, I speak from the male perspective, we all too often focus on the cosmic. We focus on things that we feel like passengers in the car of life. Like we don't have the ability to control our lives. I've felt like that, especially recently in my job. Oh yeah. I don't treat y'all like you're my therapist and I'm sitting on a couch talking to you about all my life problems. I'm not that kind of content creator. But make no mistake, my life's not perfect. Not by any stretch of the imagination. So if you're going through hard times in your life right now, I don't care if your girlfriend, have problems with your wife or your girlfriend, or your professional life's having a turn, or your life's not looking the way you like, you're not alone, sir. Not by any stretch of the imagination, let me tell you. You know, social media is one of the things I hate, especially about Instagram, is this idea that you look at everybody living their best life. You think everybody's happy and you're not. You're the only one that's miserable. You're the only one feeling life's burdens and no one else is. It's not true. It's not true. In fact, it's actually the opposite. I found the people who are talking all the time about, oh, I went to this place, I met these people, I saw this celebrity in Beverly Hills, I'm going to Europe next month. Like, they're the most miserable people on earth. I mean, maybe it's not you and you fit in that category, but I'll tell you, all too often I hear people going through that. They are the most miserable people on earth because they're trying to find happiness somewhere. I think happiness is going to Rome or meeting some bimbo in Europe. They think that happiness is to be found somewhere else, doing something else, doing somebody else. They think that's where they're going to find their happiness from, and it's just not true. They're trying to escape the fact they're not happy by going somewhere else, meeting somebody else, doing something else professionally. They think it's going to make them happy, but the answer is it won't. Happiness is fleeting, by the way. You should never want to focus and never live your life based off of happiness. That's my opinion. People who chase happiness are the most miserable SOBs on the planet. They're the people who do drugs and die of a heroin overdose at age 26. Just look at all the people in Hollywood. You'd think they'd be the happiest people on earth when they're making all this money, knowing all these amazing people, going to all these fun parties, having all these nice houses and cars, but yeah, they overdose on heroin. How do you explain that? How do you explain the guy in the gutter who's homeless is not overdosing on heroin? Meanwhile, the guy who makes $100 million a year and is on top of his game dies of meth at a drug party in Beverly Hills. I don't know. Other than the fact that everybody's trying to be happy, and instead of focusing on being fulfilled, they're focused on filling themselves with garbage, filling themselves with wealth, filling themselves with something that's going to fill the void in their soul. For some people, they find that in religion. I think religion is incredibly important. It's pivotal to my life, but I don't find my happiness in prayer. I salute you if you do. I don't. I think it's a piece to the puzzle. I don't think it is a puzzle. In the same way that people try to find it in having tons of sexual conquests or having the dream body through drugs or through intense dieting plans that make them miserable in their own life. My friends, you have to realize what matters to you. You have to ask yourself, if you don't know the answer, you got to ask that question and you got to find an answer. Because too many of us, we don't know what we're living our lives for. We only know what we don't like and what we would change about what we see around us. And I think living that way is a recipe for being unhappy, not for being fulfilled. I live my life to be fulfilled at the end of my life, and I look back and I look at what I've built, who's beside me, and I think to myself, that's what I want. Now, do I indulge here and there and do things that make me feel good in the moment? Of course I do. I'm a human being too. But I'm willing to forego immediate gratification in every single situation to go in the larger picture, because that is what matters. That, to me, is worth it. But is it worth it for you? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Are you willing to give up things to get things down the line? In the same way that you're not going to just show up in a field and have it be full of grain, you have to plant the seeds. You have to be willing to give to the earth to get something back. You have to give to yourself to get something back. Otherwise, you risk sounding like a moron who says to a furnace, "Give me heat, and then I'll give you the wood." It doesn't work that way in life, not by any stretch. In the same way that you, my friend, listening to the show, you have to decide what you want in your life. But please do not be like that schmuck I saw on Twitter today. That this big buff black guy is doing this big trending thing where he's like dunking his head in ice water. That moron. You know that, like, that's how they torture people in China and how they tortured Jews in the Holocaust? That's how they used to torture people, but now he's here doing it unto himself and pretending like it's some healthful thing to shock your nervous system like that and at 5 o'clock in the morning. I think he's a moron personally. Moron with good abs that probably got etched out, but hey, yeah, he's still an idiot, in my opinion anyway. My friend, it's all about what you want. What do you want to give to get what you want? Because everybody wants something, but not everybody is willing to give something for what they want. And you have to decide that you're not going to get what you want unless you're willing to give up something else. To get what you want, you have to lose what you have. My friends, let me know. How have you given in life and how have you received a return on that investment? I'd love to hear it. My friends, I'm going to head out of here. I will enjoy the rest of my day off on Sunday. You do the same thing, and I will catch you on the flip side. I'm out of here. Peace.